Hello everyone, this is Philosophy 2030 Logic with Ebo. Today I'll be going over Chapter 1, Section 5, Direct Derivatives. Well, let's start off with some framework, okay? Let's say we're given the following sentence. If Polk was a president, then if Whitney was a president, so was Trump. As our first premise, write that down as PR1. Our second premise is Polk wasn't a president only if Trump was a president. Premise 2. Trump wasn't a president is our third premise. The derivation goes, or the conclusion, Whitney wasn't a president. Now, that is quite confusing to follow with, right? It's a lot of words, it's a lot of things to match up with, and yes, while you could do it in theory, there is a simpler way. Let's give each of these parts their own symbol. Let's use for Polk, it's P, for Whitney, it's W, and Trump is T. Well, taking the same premise as just then, we bring down to the same sentence as earlier, we come down to these. Premise 1 goes, as you see here, if Polk was a president, then if Whitney was a president, so was Trump. Second premise goes, if Polk wasn't a president, Polk wasn't a president only if Trump was a president. Premise 3 goes, Trump wasn't a president, the negation of T. Ergo, conclusion being, Whitney wasn't a president, the negation of W. These by itself are quite nice to have. In this chapter, we'll be studying how derivations work. And I'll start with these options right here. Like a little line here, little line here, and a little line here. It's fairly straight. Let's put numbers here so we can follow through with the steps. Perfect. We want to prove throughout your course of logic, for derivations, how can we come to the conclusion with the given premises in our book of rules? Book of rules are like MP, MT, double negation, and R. Well, let's start with this one here. How can we come to the conclusion of the negation of W with our first two premises? Well, let's find out. Let's have show the conclusion of our sentence, of the entire premise argument structure, okay? We go show the negation of W. We can start off with using one of our premises to begin it off. Let's start with listing all the premises. PR1, R, the repeat of PR1, brings us just P, W, then T. PR2 R, just repetition of it, repeating it again. Premise 3R is just a negation of T. Now I can zoom in and we can focus on what we have on our screen. What can we start off with first? Well, we know that using modus tollens with premises 2 and premises 3, this is PR2 right here, and PR3, modus tollens will give us negation of the antecedent, negation of a negation of P. But how do we manage to add those two parts together and give us the negation of P? Well, let's list the lines up here. In that case, it'd be 3, 4, M, T for modus tollens. And on line 5, the one that we are currently writing on, we'd put the negation of a negation of P. The result of whatever we wrote over here stays on the same line. Now what? Well, premise 1 says, if P, then if W, then T. Because we have a double negation in line 5, of a negation of P, we can cancel out both of those negations with a rule, line 5, double negation, that eliminates those 2 extra negations on that line. Now we have P on line 6, and line 2 is perfect for this case, because it goes, if we use line 6 and line 2 on modus ponens, it brings us the conclusion, the consequence of line 2 in the conditional. But now what? We are still trying to find the negation of W up here. We want this, right? How can we manage to find that right now? Well, going back to line 4, which was premise 3, using 7 for modus tollens, we plug in this line up here in line 7 for modus tollens, which gives us the negation of W. And that's what we want to find. So how can we close it off? Well, in line 9, you just write 8, which is the answer you're looking for, dd, meaning direct derivative. You put a little square around your workings, and you cross out the show lines. And with that comes your first derivation. You have just proven through with the use of logic, premises, and a whole argument as it stands. The premises given on the left right here. As we continue to deal with more intricate, let's look right here. Well, we have a line right here. Premise 1 just goes P. That's it. That's all it is. Oh, it's an arrow. I do not want an arrow. Perfect. P. Premise 2 and premise 3. And we want to show the conclusion, which is a negation of R. How can we do that? Well, we always start numbering our lines. 1 second. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. For now, we might need more later, but we'll see. We always start with show conc, because we want to prove the conclusion with the premises. That goes show the negation of R, which is our conclusion right here. Premise 1, we're down for simplicity's sake, PR1, repetition, just repeating it again, is just P. PR2R is just Q, then negation of P. Premise 3R is R, then Q. So what can we do for now? Well, premise 2 is Q, if Q, then the negation of P. Line 2, premise 1, is just P. Double negating it, so line 2, dn, gives us a negation of P, which we can then plug into line 3, which was premise 2. 3, 5, mt, modus tollens, gives us the negation of Q. Same idea for lines 4 and 6, which was premise 3 and the line we just found, line 6. We can go 4, 6, modus tollens, bringing us the negation of R, which is what we're looking for. As you see in our show line, we found the exact answer on line 7, so we just go 7, direct derivative. We have found the direct conclusion within our derivation process. As you know, you just mark out those parts there, and we're good to go. Next we have, well, quite a bit. Make our lines here, line here. Come on, line, straighten up. Well, that's okay. In this case, with PR1, PR2, PR3, PR4. So even messy handwriting. I'll just start off with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Show conc, which was show the negation of W, and work from there. Okay? Right now, there's not much we can do looking at it, right? However, let's look at using premise 3, which is V then W, into premise 4, V to W to X. Using PR3 and PR4 in modus ponens, we get just X. These lines right here, added into one ever, brings us just X. With X on PR2, so line 2 and PR2 right here, we're using MP, sorry, V to the negation of Y. Very neat. Luckily for us, line 3, V, if V, then the negation of Y, in conjunction of up here, the first line up here, premise 1, which has the same line but under a negation outside the brackets, we can go 3, PR1, modus tollens, giving us the negation of the antecedent, which in this case is W. And in just 5 steps, that is our direct derivative. That is the end. Squares around it. Perfect. Lastly, this one's a little bit more complicated, but nothing impossible. Oops. We make a little box on the outside that helps us like keep everything in frame. Fine. These lines are not gonna be straight now because my pen does not want to cooperate. Whatever. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We always do show conc, show the conclusion, which in this case is show the negation of W to Z. Let's look at our premises, okay? PR1, PR2, PR3, and PR4. What are some things that we can do immediately? Well, for PR4, if we double negate it, we get just P. We remove the two negations on the outside. We can then use this line 2, in premise 3. So 2, PR3, modus ponens, to get to just X. Because if P is an X and we already have P, we know that we can get X. From here, it looks a little stuck, right? However, if you look at premise 2, which claims that if Z, then W, only if negation of X, we can double negate line 3. 3 double negates to get negation of X, and add in PR2. PR2, line 4, to use modus tollens. In this case, we get the negation of the antecedent, which brings us to a result of line 5. We're almost done. Not quite though. Luckily for us, PR1 is just a simple PR1, line 5, MT, which brings us the negation of the antecedent. In this case, it's just negation of open bracket, if W, then Z. Line 6, DD, and we come to our conclusion. Done. Just like that, direct derivatives are done. This is where, typically in the course, where things like to pick up pace and gets more confusing, but as long as you take your time and practice, it will all add up over time. If you have any questions, please reach out to my email on screen and during my office hours, which are up to change, of course. Thank you.